Welcome back. You're watching the Front Row with me, Abi Agina. And our Twitter poll question today, we're asking you, do you think that the government has sufficiently supported small businesses during the pandemic? We welcome your feedback on this, and quite a host of feedback streaming in on our social media handles. Many saying very great panel discussion there. We hope to see more action rather than big talk. I know a lot of you are looking forward to solutions. I see a question here from Alex Owiti saying the big question is, how much did government and donor funding pump into the economy? How would it be prudently used to help boost our economy? Another comment here with Isaac Mosby saying, let's begin with, has it supported them? Absolutely not. If anything, it has harassed them during this pandemic. Another one here, Arapto, saying no. In fact, this government has instead worsened the state of SMEs. Exorbitant taxes, youth funds being diverted to non-priority budgets, plus COVID-19 billionaires. Very interesting feedback there from our viewers, and we do thank you for sharing your thoughts. Well, we want to transition, and we'll be putting some of these questions to our panelists here who will be able to respond as and when we get to that section. But let's take a look at our report that we have lined up here. And the coronavirus pandemic has ravaged Kenya's economy for the past 1 year. Besides huge contraction of the economy and productivity losses, social welfare losses were also reported. President Uhuru Kenyatta explained why the government put life over the economy as it implemented various containment measures. KTN's Shadrach Miti has more. Economic and social disruptions brought by the COVID-19 pandemic in the last 12 months continue to weigh heavily on many households. The measures put in place by the government to mitigate the spread of the virus have had severe consequences on jobs and income, posing unprecedented shocks to the economy and livelihoods. However, in his address to reflect on 1 year of COVID-19, President Uhuru Kenyatta said although the pandemic and measures to mitigate the spread of the virus had created multiple challenges for Kenyans, it was the best decision for government given the circumstances.
Between protecting the economy and losing an average of 2,000 people daily, as per those projections, we as a government chose life over economy.
The negative impact of COVID-19 on the economy trickled down to households. There were reduced job opportunities and lower earnings, with unemployment rising to higher levels compared to pre-COVID period.
We had to partially close down business activities that included people crowding. And in order to secure the future of our children, who are Kenya's most valuable treasure, we also had to close down our schools.
Up to the time we opened our schools in January the 4th, our records indicated that 347 private schools across the country that were members of the association closed shop because of the effects of COVID. These 347 schools had about 1,300 staff, both teaching and non-teaching staff, who were affected and therefore lost their jobs.
A total of 1,879 Kenyans have succumbed to COVID-19, with the virus case load standing at more than 110,000. Nevertheless, the president says the targeted interventions employed by the government in collaboration with other players secured many lives while cushioning many from the shocks of the pandemic. And with many lives saved, it appears reviving the economy will be next.
Last year, fellow Kenyans, the Kenyan economy was projected to grow by 6.2%, but it only grew by 0.6% because of the COVID-19 pandemic. This, fellow Kenyans, translates to a loss of approximately 560 billion Kenya shillings of GDP.
Workers who are still employed face a reduction in working hours and earnings. Many businesses are not operating currently, with revenues decreasing across all sectors. And the government says saving lives will eventually post impressive dividends for social and economic advancement.
Our economy is likely to bounce back and grow by approximately 7% in the year 2021.
Although Kenya's economy still faces the danger of contracting further based on the severity of the third wave of COVID-19, the government's priority now is to deal with the public health crisis by suppressing the infections, which will then aid in reviving the economy. Shadrach Miti, KTN News.
Thank you, Shadrach, for that report. And we want to rope in Mr. Samuel Matonda, joining us from our City Center studios. He is the CEO of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and such a pleasure to have you on the program. And picking up from where we left, there's been talk of how do we embrace innovation that will be able to boost the businesses as well as increase their chances of survival. You sit at the chamber. What are you doing right now to be able to ensure companies are able to transition during these very unfamiliar times?
Thank you, Abby, for that question. Sorry, we had challenges in connecting from the CBD studios. But then, of course, when you talk about innovation and the impact of COVID-19 to the Kenyan SMEs, I will say that it has been tough for the Kenyan SMEs, I could say, and it is actually that most of them closed down. There is a lot that they've gone through, which I am sure that during this discussion we've highlighted. There are some sectors, when I talk of innovation, there are sectors that have been totally shattered. At some point, the SMEs who are dealing in the tourism sector, and most of them relied heavily on the traffic of the tourists into the country. But because of the travel restrictions, they had just to shut down. Those who are dealing with curious, those who are in the hotel industry, those who are operating transport services to support that sector, closed down. However, because of the resilient nature of Kenyans, most of those actually changed and innovated and started doing other businesses. Most of them may have shifted to offering services to other sectors. For example, I know of some who ventured into production of PPEs, like the face masks. And we, as the chamber, gave a lot of SMEs an opportunity, about 300 of them, to supply the face masks through the MOH project that the chamber hosted. We also saw so many of the SMEs wanting to change from one business to the other, and through the MasterCard Foundation that we had funding.
Can you hear me, Mr. Matonda?
Yes, please.
Thank you for giving us that very nice illustration of how you've supported SMEs in the past. Talk us through what are you doing currently, because for many it is living from hand to mouth and they want to get solutions now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but now.
Thank you, Abby. Well, what I'm saying is that we have supported our SMEs, those who are able to, across the 47 counties, those who are able to access the MasterCard funding. Some actually who had closed, as I've just said, but then through the program, we were able to give, and that program has really assisted in the innovative SMEs who could get as little as, say, 5,000 to 30,000 shillings to just jumpstart their business again after the impacts of COVID. And they really were very happy because through that program, we reached more more than 30,000 Kenya SMEs across the country, those who are in the Mama Mbogas, those who are in the Jua Kali sector, those who are in, who could turn around the product but didn't have capital to start. And that kind of support was actually zero interest funding that was available to the SMEs, and those who benefited really appreciated. However, the money may look small. I know that what I've talked about, the masks, that the mask project that we hosted through the funding from the Ministry of Health, also enabled us to give an opportunity to more than 300 MSMEs, who also participated in the production. What we are doing to assist the resilience of the SMEs is because we have been using our network in the counties to really visit our MSMEs wherever they are, try to conduct virtual discussions with them regarding the market opportunities. I know that there's most SMEs who have lost markets, international markets, but through our trade fairs and exhibitions that we have been organizing, an example of which where Honorable Sianyi, who is in studio, participated in recently in Egypt, we were able to lead more than 78 delegates, most of whom were SMEs, to go and try and access markets in Egypt. And such kind of ventures that we are doing at subsidized rates has really assisted our SMEs to go showcase and seek partnerships and seek markets within Africa and beyond. We have also had different county fora whereby we have been engaging with our members across the counties.
All right.
And having exchange programs. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Matonda. Very interesting that you talk about the funding coming out of the MasterCard as well as the business linkages. And bringing it back to my guests here, and I'd like to bring in Victor. Looking at the current environment, if you read the rants on social media, and also a lot are saying taxation, taxation, taxation. Majority want the business environment to be leveled off because the cash flow isn't as it was and might not come back to the normal levels that they enjoyed. What are some of the practical innovations that perhaps the state can consider, and are there best case scenarios that we can also borrow a leaf from?
I would break it down into two parts. Number one is, if you look at the sector distribution of SMEs, a majority of SMEs are in wholesale retail. So basically, these are people who buy to sell. The challenge with that kind of business is it's very difficult to differentiate.
Yes.
So profit margins are very thin. So those are businesses that will always be in a cycle of we need financing, we need financing. So I think there has to be a systemic way, and of course, wholesale retail is also susceptible to shocks, whether it's cheap products from China or COVID-19. So there has to be a way in which we are able to systemically shift the sector composition from people who buy to sell to manufacturing. The challenge, again, we are seeing is Vision 2030 talks about, putting manufacturing at 15% of GDP. But if you look at the policies that government is putting, is counterproductive to that. One being AGOA, in the sense that we are bringing second-hand clothes, yet we are trying to, promote Uhuru Market and other people who are doing manufacturing. So you can see there is a contradiction there. Number two is Waziri was talking about cottage industries, as a strategy. Question is, the same government is also investing in SEZ. So is there a coherent linkage between investment in special economic zones and the cottage industries that he's talking about. So we are seeing a bit of, discordance in some way. That's number one. Number two, in terms of innovation, if you look at global trends, the last decade, in terms of, the largest companies in terms of net worth, 10 years ago, we were looking at fossil-based companies, being top businesses. If you look at now, we are seeing Facebook, Twitter, Amazon being top big businesses. So there's a global shift towards what we call startup-led innovation, in the sense that startups are businesses that try to solve problems using technology. And if you look at Africa, coming closer home, we've seen Tunisia, we've seen Senegal enacting startup bills that can be able to, really support businesses called startups, which are very distinctly, different from SMEs, as a driver or as a frontier for economic development. So, of course, government has made an effort, and we already have a startup bill in Senate, which is being debated, which I think is a massive, massive step in terms of really harnessing the innovative spirit of Kenyans. You mentioned as we were starting that we've seen young Kenyans do ventilators. Mind you, maybe if I could just inform you, Kenyan startups attract 17% of all venture capital that comes to Africa. Kenya is number 3 in terms of innovation, if you look at the Global Innovation Index. So Kenya is really, startups and young innovative Kenyans are working hard despite the lack of government support. And I think the advice that probably would put out there is for government to really have a coherent policy around innovation to ensure that we're able to support our young innovators.
All right. I'd like you to hold your point, sir.
No,
we have to go on a quick commercial break.
All right.
Because we will be back. This is the front row. I'll be coming back with some of their closing comments as well. And what does the future portend for you out there who is a small business wondering how can I leapfrog and bounce back? We'll go for that quick commercial break.